All right, let's talk about testing for exceptions. As you know, I'm a big fan of unit testing. So sometimes you want to actually test that your code is doing the right thing with respect to exceptions because you're expecting them to happen and you're using them to protect yourself, to make things robust. Okay, so I'm going to start with a test. The structure of your test should be such that here I have a source folder, and I also want to have a test source folder. Test. Okay, I'm going to do this in a broken way just to show you something. Okay, so test unit case. Not very imaginative today. JUnit 4, it's going to put it in the test directory. Okay, let's do that. Sure, why not? Let's add JUnit 5 to the build path. Okay, so we've got a bunch of red. The first thing is that it's probably not in the right package for my module. Need to see one error at a time. Okay, I'm going to start by making my package. So we should have the things that are in test should mirror the things that are in source exactly. So because the thing, I'm going to put my code in here in this cause problems class. So I want to make sure to put my exception test inside of the examples package. So I need to make one of those first, a new package. And now I've just decided that I want to rename this because it should be called cause problems test, if that's actually what I'm going to do. So I'm going to right click, refactor, and rename my test. This is a standard way to name tests. The class that's under test is here, although that is not a necessity, it's pretty common. Okay, now I'm going to take my test and pop it into the examples package. And it automatically put this at the top for me. Okay, I have a few more errors and they seem to be related to imports. So if I just hover over it, I've got a few options, and I know because this is a modular project, I need to specify the external libraries that are being used in the module info file. Okay, so here's the module-info file. You'll see there's nothing in here right now except saying what the name is. And when I make the change that is going to make JUnit accessible to me, add requires blah 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 to module.info.java. That's added this part in here. It's red, but we'll come back to that. We still have red because this guy also, so we also need JUnit over there. Okay, so this is red, and the reason why is that for modular projects, you need to have the required libraries on the module path. So you can see JUnit here is on the class path. Eclipse did that automatically for us. We want it to be over there. I could do this manually here, but I'm just going to use the quick fix to do it. Move class path entry to module path. Okay, so that part's happy, and then we come over here into my test and it's happy. I'm just going to run it to make sure everything's all set up. Great, we wanted to see a fail. All right, so I wanted to go there just so that you didn't get stuck when you were making your own first modular project and a brand new one. But the reason I'm here, sometimes I have to remind myself, is I want to show you how to test for exceptions. Okay, so usually we have asserts in here, but this time I'm going to make an exception happen. So cause problems, might as well get political. This is the name of my method. I'm going to try and outlaw guns. It's killing too many people. Humans should not have those. Alright, I'm going to create the method like that. You'll notice that I'm doing my test first and then I'm implementing my class. That's essential for TDD and makes everything beautiful. You just have to trust me on that. I didn't make it up. And it's just, I don't want to explain everything right now, but yeah, so I'm writing the test first, and then I'm going to see it fail before I implement my code. That's test-driven development. We were talking about in the last lesson. Okay, so here I am in cause problems. I'm going to create an exception here. I'm going to throw new exception. Okay, so now this has gone red because my method doesn't explicitly have a throws declaration. So I'll just stick that on, then go back to my test. All right, so now I have to surround this with a try catch. I'm happy enough about that. But I actually want to add an assert to make sure this happens. Okay, this is hurting my eyes, so I'm going to take this stack trace out. See, it was automatically generated that time. Just do nothing for the moment. My test is green because I don't have any asserts. But what I actually want to do is I want to make sure that an exception is thrown, because when guns are outlawed in America, there's many things stopping that from happening, which is unfortunate. But my main point here is that I want to make sure that it actually gets inside of this catch block, because I want to see an exception being thrown when this method is thrown. So to do that, I'm going to put an assert inside my catch block, and I'm going to use this really simple one, assert true, and put true in the parentheses. So this is going to be green. This is going to be green once we come in here. That's all of that line is saying. And I also want to make sure it's testing the opposite case. So, because if this was just like this, I'm still going to get a green bar, but I want to get a failing test when this is not throwing an exception. So what I want to do is inside the try block, also put an assert to make sure that this piece of code isn't actually called. This is going to be an assert false, because I want it to not be called. That's a bit confusing. Okay, so remember I was saying with the exceptions how these things are chunked together. Well, how it exactly works is it's going to do this line, and then if there's an error with this line, it's not going to do any of the subsequent things. So if I get an exception here, then I won't hit this line. And that's why I get a red bar. All right, so the whole purpose of this test was to make sure that an exception was called. So I'll put my exception back in. Be faster doing it like this. And now I run my test, and it's green. That was my desired behavior. Okay, when you're doing these, you want to make sure to give it a good title and to make sure your test is clear. So I'm going to say test outlawing guns in America throws an exception. Okay, so that is how you test to make sure an exception has been thrown. Next thing I want to show you is how to create your own exceptions in the context of this little thing that we're doing here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is when guns are outlawed in America, I want a specific type of exception to happen. So mine is going to be NRA exists. The NRA, that stands for National Rifle Association, and they're essentially lobbying so that guns don't get outlawed in America, even though they're killing a whole lot of people, because they are proponents of guns. All right, it's actually going to be an exception. Okay, so this is me actually making an exception of my own. I was super stoked when I discovered this when I was learning. I'm going to automatically create my class. And I want to show you this specifically. It knows that I want an exception because it's coming out of the throws. Clever Eclipse. But I want to show you how you would make it from scratch. So you would say, make your class like that, and then you want to make it extend exception. All right. So you'll see that this is fine. And that is because my NRA exception extends exception, so it still falls under this parent class, but you would usually have the actual name of the exception there. Okay, now in my test, I want to make sure that not just an exception is thrown, but specifically that an NRA exists exception is thrown. So what I want to do is put that in here. Okay, and just to make sure that the test is working right, I might, put that back out again. Make sure the test fails. Make sure the test fails. I'm just proving this stuff guide to you guys. Even if a regular old exception, throw new. Even if a regular old exception is thrown, I would like my test to fail, which it does, and that's great. Oh, that's just because it's red, it's not because it's failing. Yes, so it says that I need to have also a general exception. So if the general exception is called, that's not what I want. So I'm going to put an assert in there so that if it comes into this block, then it's going to fail. And it does. So put this back the way I wanted it. Hope this is not too confusing. Okay, I'm going to recap on those things. Creating your own exceptions. Done. All right, so what I did was I made my own exception. It can have more stuff in here if you want, but it's common just to make a class that has a descriptive name to explain the problem that happened. So say if you were making code that was to be used by someone else, it might be nice to have some organized and explicative exceptions as part of your code. What else did we do? We tested for an exception to be thrown, and the way to do that is to make sure that it hits on the correct catch block that you want. All right, I hope I haven't made you even more confused than you were, but this is a super nifty trick, so I had to show it to you. I'm not going to make you do an exercise on this. The exercise that I'd like you to do is related to the Hangman project from last week, to add an exception into there. I'll describe that in the exercise section. All right, peace out. Talk to you later.